Okay, first facecam video ever because this was important shit right now. We just played Guild Wars and got upset again, and I spent €20 on a fucking transfer. And this is the third time we're having this conversation because the first time it was off camera and we argued because we weren't recording it, and then the second time OBS crashed, so we're gonna have this discussion a third time, Johnny and I. And
Maybe
this
this time
kind of
we get to finish the conversation as
we get
well.
the yeah, but we have to start all over, which kind of shows you how upset we actually are about this entire
Well,
thing.
I'm more amused than upset. You're upset. I'm just
I'm
like
upset. I'm
intrigued
upset.
with like how is this game so bland? How is this game so bland?
Okay, so here's the background. Johnny keeps coming back to the game and keeps quitting it because he remembers why he doesn't like it. I played the crap out of pre-release, and then I played for 3 months after release, which was until November 2012, and this was the first time I touched that game ever since. And oh my god, I regret it so much.
You regret
Uh,
do you regret the time we spent or just the money you spent?
I kind of regret the money because at least with that money I could have bought you the Secret World and played that instead.
Like we could have done something better with €20 than fucking Guild Wars 2 character transfer because okay, so Guild Wars 2, but you don't need to transfer characters because like it's all connected. You can guess you can't guess to other regions, and Mirag's
I,
character was locked
I
away
can,
on
if
the North
if you
America
can
servers.
if you can guess in other regions. My character was an American server because I tried playing with a friend too. Shortly after I quit, but didn't work out. If you can do that, I wasn't allowed to because guesting kept being grayed out for me.
Yeah.
It would only let me transfer.
So wait.
And it took a while until the processing fees and transferring fees and everything went through. It took like an hour
we
until we got
we
working.
we've been like at this point. This is just after the stream ended, and we streamed for like 2 hours. This is hour
Yeah,
3 of our Skype call.
this is our 3 hour Skype call, yes. So, here's the thing. We're upset because Guild Wars has good systems set in place and it never did anything with them.
It has good individual systems, and they never mesh. But even the individual systems are never that great. They're just okay, and because they never work together to form a better whole, like it never manages to transcend the limitations of each individual system in any way.
Yeah, to give you an example, so last two games I played that were MMOs were Final Fantasy XIV and The Secret World. And Final Fantasy XIV's approach is okay, we have a bunch of typical Final Fantasy bullcrap, you're the hero story, we have a bunch of grinding, we have a bunch of numbers and number crunching, and we have all of that together, and we know our audience, and we're sticking to that. And they go through with it till the end, and if you don't like grinding, if you don't like anime stories, if you don't like cat girls or whatever, you're not gonna like that game. It's gonna put you off. But if you like that, you get a lot of depth from it. In the Secret World, you have NPCs, you have storytelling, you have great, great, great quests, and you have a very good way to build your character. But that's followed with shitty user interface, very bland combat because obviously that wasn't a priority. But then people who don't care about the combat feel they won't be put off because they like the storytelling. They'll die right in. Guild Wars just takes all its systems and puts them on a shallow level because if you go too deep in combat, if you go too deep in narrative, if you go too deep in any aspect of that game, it'll actually put off the people who don't like that aspect, and then you won't be able to please everyone. And Guild Wars was simply one of those games that was trying to be a World of Warcraft killer. It was supposed to be the next big mainstream thing, so you have this problem of having to appeal to so many people, and that makes me upset because we have a situation with the combat, and I really like how the combat in Guild Wars 2 feels. I actually played Guild Wars 2 and the Secret World back to back at one point. You have no idea how good Guild Wars combat feels in comparison. But when you don't do anything with that, when you don't do absolutely anything with that, all you're left with is training dummies who don't care whether you're dodging, who don't care which ability you have on cooldown, who don't care whether you're at 50% HP. They only care whether you're dead or alive. when you have these kind of situations and these kind of uneventful factors, I mean, you have abilities that are 240 seconds on cooldown, and then what happens is I fire this ability, you expect it to be a big whooper ability. Uh, what happens? It does nothing. Like
Like
you miss, you don't get anything. If you hit, it didn't make that much of a difference because it wasn't powerful in the first place.
there are very few abilities in Guild Wars 2 that feel impactful, which is kind of amazing because Guild Wars 1 had quite a few impactful things. At least in fair, the animations there weren't good enough to make it feel impactful, but they had things that changed the match quite rapidly.
I mean, look, and like in champ, I mean, I get you want to do balance and whatnot, but if it's not fun, then I don't care about balance. I mean, you
Like,
shouldn't care about balance if it doesn't feel fun.
I followed Guild Wars 2 quite closely up till release, and like all the goals they had with developing this game, like all the goals felt like they had good goals with most of the things they were doing, but they clash so much in the final product, and like they try to do everything. They try to like create this big world, and it doesn't really succeed, but because they don't go all in on it. They tried to create a personal story, which was like the thing in Guild Wars 1 was that it was like more of a tighter story, and they completely fail at that here. And well, I mean, Guild Wars 1 story doesn't hold up that well either. It was good for an MMO story at the time. I mean, Jesus, it's not that great. But I mean, world design is better. The world building in Guild Wars 1 is honestly better than it is here. Like, it is so much better. The world feels gigantic.
Here's my feeling with Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is, you say, oh, it does this very well, but, and that's every sentence. You know, the landscape is extremely beautiful. I love taking screenshots and Guild Wars.
Yeah.
But it all feels kind of constricted in one of its own little cubes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have situations like, oh, the combat feels really good, and you have so many weapons, so many different abilities, so many ways to combine it. But it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And then you have situations like, oh, we are going away with the Trinity system. We don't need Trinity systems. We don't have healer classes. Everyone can heal. But your heals aren't good enough to keep you alive in solo combat, and they aren't good enough to help you in dungeons either. But you can self heal. Everybody can heal individually, but it doesn't do the job.
Everyone can sort of do a weak thing, and everyone can sort of do everything and not super well. Nobody feels specialized, and because nobody feels specialized, you don't have to work on team play as much, like in the PvE and in the PvP. Like, you don't have to communicate nearly as much as in other MMOs. And it's like, you built an MMO. This is a game where people play in groups and communicate and make friends, and like, that's the whole point of it. And then you de-emphasize that part, and what the hell are you doing?
The thing is, the dungeons I played back on release, they did need teamwork, but they needed teamwork for the wrong reasons. It wasn't teamwork because of coordination. It was teamwork because, guys, the stuff in the dungeon can fucking two-shot us. Everything can fucking, mobs can two-shot us. Bosses can one-shot us. We have to figure this shit out and what to do. That's the kind of teamwork you have. It wasn't teamwork in the sense of, you can heal, and you pop that heal, you protect the healer, or you can do range, you can do this, you can do that. No, it was literally, okay, guys, when he does his big attack, we all need to get the fuck away because this thing will one-shot us. I play a fucking warrior tank, and I invested everything in toughness, and I invested everything in healing power because I figured, oh, I have shouts, and I have abilities that can make shouts heal. That probably does stuff for the group. Maybe I can be a tank healer because in the previous MMO I played Champions Online, I made tank healers that were pretty fucking awesome. But no, this was all you're emphasizing on healing and health. Yeah, that only means you get one extra shot of survival.
I'm gonna make World of Warcraft comparisons here because I spent most of my MMO time in World of Warcraft. That's a bit cliche, and like everyone plays World of Warcraft. It's the vanilla MMO. It still has some things that, well, at least old World of Warcraft had a lot of things that I think it did a lot better than what Guild Wars 2 is, and are useful examples. Like, those who play World of Warcraft will know the Barrens. The Barrens is this, like, big, stretchy area that goes in the middle of one of the two continents from the vanilla game. And it was a big stopping point for a lot of players because it was huge. It had a lot of quests that were not very imaginative and eventful. But it's this big, kind of calm savanna where not a lot of things happen. And like, even like warfare is pretty much like these big open stretches where everything takes time and it takes time to get to places. And it bored a lot of people to tears, and I won't lie, I fucking hate questing in the Barrens as well, like everyone hated it. But because the Barrens existed, it was a huge landmark in the world, and it made the world feel so much real to have these like low points, like points of little activity instead of like everything being explosive everywhere all the time.
I mean, another thing that contributes to Guild Wars feeling flat, and I've always said this, and I know people dislike that, but it was the level scaling that also just killed it for me, because the power progression felt so flatlined because of it to me.
I think there are ways to do level scaling and have a true power progression. DC Universe had that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there obviously is that. I mean, you could downscale if you wanted to quest with lower levels in Champions Online 2, and that was fine. You were obviously more powerful, but if you were doing dungeons, you still had to be careful because otherwise you would easily die. Here, it's more like...
One of the things that kind of wreck it is that you stop getting cool ability. Like, you get your main abilities pretty early, and then you stop getting cool stuff that changes how you play. You only get the support abilities, and they don't feel impactful at all.
They don't, because it felt like they were too concerned of it being too balanced and not breaking stuff. Having control over it, and they have obviously probably control over how the abilities work, but it just doesn't feel impactful.
Yeah, it never did, and
it's so conflicted, because then you'll say, oh well, you're one of a bunch of people. You should all you all have to be nearly the same power level. You can't have individuals being more powerful. I mean, it's so conflicted, because you have, and now I'm gonna go back to questing, but you have this questing which is constructed so it feels organic, in the sense of you don't have to find a guy, do his quest, and they go on. But events happen around you, even if they're very rough. They happen around you, and then you do stuff, and then that makes an impact on the event. And it's all in favor of this feeling like, oh, you are part of the world. But then you have those personal storyline quests which highlight just you and spotlight just you, and it's just so conflicted. Even the narrative is conflicted, the combat is conflicted. It just feels like it doesn't work hand in hand at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like, while we're talking about the world events, like they don't work. They don't do anything as advertised. Like the way they sold these things was like, oh, you're gonna have like these big events where towns will be taken over, and then like that will change how the landscape works. No, because it will be yours again in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I'll mostly give Guild Wars shit because of how they advertised it, or in NCSoft, whoever was doing advertising, I'm guessing both of them. Open world quests in MMOs are generally a bitch to do. That's extremely hard. I have not played an MMO with open world events that were actually well made. They just break after a certain player count.
I really like what Rift did. Rift did super cool, like... So Rift is a shit game overall. Okay, let's put that out there. I think it's a shit MMO, but the titular feature of the rifts that open, where enemies just spew out and like invasions can happen, where they just come out of rifts everywhere and start marching on the settlements. are amazing, and they aren't scripted the way Guild Wars 2s are. Like in Guild Wars 2, you will have an event, and then like this specific event chain will happen, and it's always this event following this event following this event, and if this fails, then it goes to this event, and like so on and so on and so on, and then you take it back, and then you go after them, and like it's always exactly the same event chain. But in Rift, this Rift just started spawning shit, and once you get to that rift and like try to close it, it's more like an open world boss fight where it like spawns waves of enemies and like eventually spawns a boss that does something. So like that's a cool standard WoW like MMO boss fight, but like in open world, which was also kind of cool. But yes, as you said, it could be broken by numbers. But because those rifts control just the spawning of monsters that would just go out and slaughter everything and take over places, it felt like it had a real impact because it was unpredictable. It didn't like always happen in the same way. I had like a moment where I swam out of the coast to a little island and did a quest there. And I like opened the world map and I just saw like how almost the entire zone was conquered by enemies spawning from rift invasions. And I like had to figure out how to get back to the capital city, which was in the middle of the zone, without getting killed by all these things repeatedly. And that's a pain in the ass. And also the most amazing thing that's happened to me in a post-World of Warcraft MMO.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of those things. You have, if you're targeting a broad audience, you have to play it safe. But if you're playing it so safe, you can't actually do something interesting. Other MMOs, I think, work well despite their flaws, in the sense that, okay, we have our flaw, but we also have this one thing that nobody else is trying to do or nobody else dares to do, and we're doing it, and it's working well for us, and you're gathering all the people who like that. The only issue is whether you'll overshoot what you're trying to do. If you're putting in a budget that needs 50 million people or whatever actively subscribed, then you're probably not gonna survive off a niche.
Yeah.
But EVE Online survived off a niche.
EVE Online is the coolest thing in MMOs. It's like it's the least accessible thing in MMOs, of course. But like just the time I've spent in it, even like as a clueless pilot, just trying to make some money off of the market and selling ore and trying to build buy better ships and stuff. Like, it felt like a living, breathing world because that's exactly what it is. It's all player control. Like, there are NPC missions and there are NPCs to shoot down, but they are not the controlling thing in that world. And that's something no other modern MMO even tries to do.
Or Final Fantasy XIV, the remake. It went and pandered maybe pander's too strong. It went and delivered on its fan base's wishes or its target audience's wishes. It's surviving as a subscription MMO. You say subscription MMOs are dead. Well, maybe because everybody's overshooting with trying to capture everyone in their mainstream sphere.
Yeah. I definitely think mainstream MMOs can I think subscription MMOs can make a comeback, and Final Fantasy could succeed for a long time, actually. Most of them come out and are shit, and you start joking, oh, how long until this goes free to play? It's gonna take a while for Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn to go free to play.
I don't think it'll ever go free to play because honestly, you can feel the difference. I'm just gonna say, you can feel the difference between updates and, for example, Guild Wars, which was buy to play, and a free to play MMO like pick any. And Final Fantasy XIV, because during the 3 months I played of Final Fantasy XIV, there was so much content being delivered. There was more content being delivered than I remember Guild Wars getting. There was more content being delivered than I've seen in some free-to-play MMOs in a span of 2 years. It was just working out for them. They managed to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, I am not personally a fan of Final Fantasy. My problem with this is that the combat design is just a simpler version of World of Warcraft. And once you are immersed in World of Warcraft combat, it's hard to just go for a game that does that, but less complex and less interesting. so it bounced off me personally. But like, I definitely see that there are things it does well. I like its world design. It feels very Final Fantasy despite being an MMO.
Yeah, it feels like playing a Final Fantasy game. That's great. And I mean, here for example, I'm a niche that likes playing unarmed combat in MMOs if given the choice. I like punching stuff, and Final Fantasy let me punch stuff for 3 months, and that was very nice of it. And
Anyway,
that's the kind of person I am. Yeah.
I think we're
Yeah,
reaching
we've
the end
reached.
of what we can say about meaningfully about Guild Wars 2. Like, its its structured PvP combat is pretty good. Like, it has there's something there. But for the PvE, for the like, especially the world PvE, like running around and doing events, it's so many squandered ideas. It's just everything feels so manufactured.
I'm just, I'm sad about it. I'm upset because I'm sad about it, and not because I'm caring about it. I'm upset because Guild Wars has so many good ideas, and they're just in the middle, like when they're starting to get interesting, they're just cut off. No,
Yeah, like
they don't.
it's
They don't get to be good. No, boom, and
it,
that's what frustrates me because you know what it could have been.
and like the thing that frustrates me so much is that Guild Wars 1 wasn't like that at all. Guild Wars 1 had a very focused vision. Everything was instanced. You had like parties of up to 8, and it had very like focused classes and different things you had. You had necromancers that like summoned things and threw curses at people. You had monks that had healing magic as well as like some damage stuff. Like smite monks was a thing that like
Yeah.
dealt holy damage to people. And because you had Guild Wars 1 was like a 2-class system, because you had a primary class and then you multi-classed into one of the others. So you would have like an elementalist with some necromancer abilities, and like the character customization there was huge because you had these 8 skill slots and you just picked whatever. It wasn't like Guild Wars 2 is, where your first 4 skills are locked in and the rest are just support abilities. You could put in 8 attack abilities if you wish, but that would be a bit silly.
Yeah. Anyway, that's everything. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Check out the video archive of the stream for more context of this if you haven't, or if you just want to see this as its own rant.
This is not signing off of Guild Wars 2 and probably never playing it again. I don't think I'm going back.
No, I can't. It's dead. I just checked it after 2 years. Yeah, it's dead for me.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. I know some people I know still like it. I can't.
I mean, I tried to. I really tried. Nobody can say I didn't. I tried so much.
Tried so hard. Okay.
No. We'll get a DMC takeout. Don't sing.
We've gotten to the bad music reference part of this show. Good night, everyone.